He said maybe the reason why we call it tough love is that we find it tough sometimes to actually be strong. All right, so it's tough on us. It may not be tough on the person at all, okay? It might be tough on us to be strong, all right? Because especially angelic humans and indigos, there's a lovely idealistic quality that we have. But sometimes we need to learn, well, you know, maybe not everybody holds the same values as we do, and maybe not everybody will respond in the loving way that I am giving to them. And we're learning from that, okay? So it's a learning that sometimes we need to stand firm in our own strength. Okay, so tough love approach frequently requires us to demonstrate that we can hold our own power even in the face of disapproval. Tough love is an ability of personal empowerment worth cultivating for personal and client healing. This was in the context of the Cathari manual, that if you have people coming to you for healing sessions, that sometimes you need to be very firm with them, but it also applies in our ordinary lives, okay, or family life or whatever, okay? Love others as you would love the self, and love the self as you would like to love others. Because eventually, when we become fully integrated, we wouldn't really see a distinction in that kind of way. We would actually just feel the love energy, no matter what anybody was doing. We still love them, we may not like what they're doing, but there would be that feeling of, well, if you're in my hologram, there's something in me that you're mirroring back to me, okay? Do you get that and understand that concept? That, remember, Fraz, you probably did the shields bit. Yeah. Now, if something is in your shield, okay, all right, if something is in your hologram, the energy of that is somewhere in your energy system, okay? Because if you think of a shield, one way I think of a shield, you know, the shields that hold the programs, okay? One way of thinking of a shield that I find helpful is like a DVD, like a disc, okay? And every DVD holds the program for that particular movie, or that particular hologram, if you like, okay? And if you put on a DVD, the only things that can come out in the picture are what's in the shield, in the disc, okay? And similarly, if something is in our environment, we could not see it as in our hologram if it's some part of it was not in our own energy system, okay? Does that make sense to you, all right? Ash had a lovely way of expressing it, and it really helps when we're thinking about love. She said, the world is not coming at me, it is coming through me. Okay, right? The world, what we see around us as our hologram, is not coming at me. It's not somebody else doing it to me. It is coming through my energy. It's almost like, you think of like the DVD player or like a holographic thing, where you have that in your shield. You have some energy in your shield, and because of the frequencies of source coming through you, that jumps out and pops out and manifests in your hologram. Does it make sense to you? I mean, you couldn't see something in your hologram unless it was somehow in your energy field, okay? And when you really get that, it's a great cure for judgment or for non-love, because you realize everything in your hologram is a reflection back to you in some way. It's either teaching you something, showing you something, or just show you how the whole thing works, shows you how energy works, okay? Even the people, especially often the people who really drive you nuts, they're often people who, in a funny kind of a way, are really teaching you hugely. And maybe at other levels of creation, because we all have so many levels of our creation, maybe the higher aspects of self, they love each other very deeply, all right? And they really are, you know, very much in harmony with each other. And the part of us that might be in conflict with somebody is actually, we're actually working out lessons of love for each other, and we're teaching each other hugely. So often, it's almost like if you decide you're coming into manifestation and you realize, yes, I really have that kind of an issue I really have to work with. Well, sometimes the best person to help you with that is somebody who drives you nuts, okay? So maybe at the other level, before you came into this particular time frame, you almost had an agreement, okay, we'll meet up and we'll show each other a few things, okay? So quite often, the people in our environment, often especially the people who challenge us, okay, are maybe there to teach us something. And I found that anyway myself, once you can begin to, first of all you think, oh no, that couldn't be, I'm not like that. No, I mean, you know, they're the opposite of me. Okay, opposites are reflections quite often, okay? And when you can begin to say, okay, well maybe that is teaching me something, and you begin to sort of say, okay, well, can I come to a place of love for myself in this? And when you begin to say, okay, I can begin to say, all right, maybe that is me. Maybe it's a teensy bit in me. It's big in her, but it's a little bit in me, okay? Right? That's the way we often work, okay? And if you can begin to heal that teensy bit in yourself, you begin to notice that it doesn't come at you from the person as much at all, okay? So we're learning the lessons of love, and we're learning the lessons of coming into our own power and how the whole energy system works. Okay, so self-love. Okay, of course, it's actually even in the responsibilities of mastery. Self-love is a responsibility of mastery. We need to love the self, okay? Because if we don't, we're going to look for love from outside of ourselves, even if we seem to be acting in loving ways with people. Right? There'll always be that inner motive of wanting something back, all right? In a moment, we're going to look at the energy of martyrdom, okay, where you sort of give everything to everybody, but there's an underlying kind of deal that they'll get back to you, okay? So self-love is really important, because self-love is acknowledging yourself as an expression of source. And there's a really nice expression, some of you have seen it in the t-shirts, that particularly Mac loves to use this one. She's our third speaker. My relationship with source comes first. My relationship with source comes first. All right? It's my first responsibility to know myself as a full expression of source, as much as I can. And that is actually my main responsibility, because if I'm able to do that, then I will naturally treat other people with the love that I feel for the self. Okay? I'm sure that makes sense to you, right? So it is actually a responsibility, and as I was saying earlier, because we're all coming back into balance from having been a little bit out of balance, we may go one or the other. Some people have a tendency to, think they're like to have big ego problems, and think that they're, God's gift to the world, as it were. Okay, and other people sort of debase themselves and sort of think they're worthless, and we've been very much encouraged to do that through a lot of our our religions and our culture. We've been encouraged to think we're powerless and worthless. Okay, but when you come back, so when we're coming back into balance, we may find ourselves swinging a bit back and forth until we come to a bit of a balance in that. Okay, but we will, and it's in the materials, that we will treat others basically with the same respect that we feel for ourselves. Okay, even if that may not be obvious on a superficial level, but unless we are loving ourselves, when we enter any relationship, we're looking for something rather than wishing to give something. Okay, if we don't love ourselves, we're expecting our partner, our child, or our friend to make up for that lack in ourselves. So we're not really working from a standpoint of love. We're working from a standpoint of need. Okay, and that is so prevalent. All you need to do is listen to most of the songs out there about love. Like you make me happy and can't live without you and all those things. Okay, they are all feeding on this thing that you are nobody on your own unless you've got somebody to love, or unless somebody loves you. And what we're saying is that you are, even if you never spoke to another human being for the rest of your lives, you are an embodiment of God. And you can embody that full love yourself. And it's very easy for me to say it, and I mean, we all go through times when we don't feel that, and that's okay. But just when you catch yourself, okay, am I giving myself love here? Okay? And, eventually the balance comes. Okay? So when love is approached through self-love, the motivation is to give joyfully, knowing that anything you require can be made manifest through the love of the active God force that you carry in yourself. All right? I think Noel was saying yesterday that the original human imprint and the indigo imprint was self-sustaining, even on a physical level. We didn't need to eat. We didn't need anything from outside of ourselves, because we were able to sustain ourselves completely through our connection with Source. Okay? Now, at the moment, in the physical bodies we have, we still do need to eat, okay, and things like that. We do need a certain amount, but on an energy level, we can start to realize that I do not need anybody from outside to make me feel better, or to make me feel loved. And if I find myself needing that, that's showing me something to heal in myself. All right? And as I say, easier said than done, but we are gradually coming towards that sense of, okay, if I know myself, and if I really begin to feel that inner connection, even when we did that technique, if you could feel a little bit, yes, it's within me, and come back to that point. When you feel out of balance, even sing a song or two or something, and it helps to remind you, not just remind your mind, because your mind can trip the words very easily. It's very easy to say, oh yeah, we're all one, and I love, it's very easy to say that. But when you actually embody it, it's a very different feeling, okay? Rightio. Now, the illusion of martyrdom. Right. martyrdom, certainly it's in a certain religious culture, certainly the one that I was brought up in anyway, there's kind of like a glorification of the martyr, all right, or the mother who does everything for her children, never asks for anything, or somebody's always going running around doing everything for everybody else, that kind of martyrdom. And it can look like love, but it may not be true love on the deep level, okay? Because martyrdom is actually, for one thing, it's actually denying your own needs. And what happens in the martyrdom situation is that the one who goes around and says, I never think of myself and I look after everybody else. But there's actually there's a sort of an unwritten agreement that other people will kind of give back to you, okay? So the martyrdom is not a demonstration of love. It's actually a demonstration that you don't feel love for yourself. And it's also sometimes the martyr thing can be very much like looking after everybody else, and that can actually disempower other people because maybe you stop people from learning their own lessons or looking after themselves. So martyrdom is not an expression of love. There's quite a lot of it in the materials, and Ash said very nicely in one of the most recent ones, she says Source isn't a martyr, right? Source has set up, which is each one of us at that level, Source has set up a creation system where free will is allowed, but Source will not allow the whole creation to be destroyed because of the use of free will. Source has set up a system by which it will remain eternal. So Source is not a martyr. And, the Christos energy is not a martyr. It's not about depriving ourselves or negating ourselves or denying ourselves. I mean, we got a lot of that going. Deny yourself, lends you to deny yourself all sorts of things, okay? And there's that kind of culture of yourself being less worthy in some way, okay? So the martyr isn't, martyrs, I mean, people do their best. And if we find ourselves doing these things, if we see people acting in this way, it isn't to judge them at all. It's actually to realize just the dynamics that are at play. Oh, but it seems to be missing. What did that maybe should have, I think it skipped a few here. Anyway, the one we should be going on to here is Omni Love, which the word Omni, of course, holds the energy. Here we are. It's just me with computers. Okay. The word Omni Love, of course, means all. Okay, and Omni Love would be very much like the energy of the Manu, of the still point, where you can do them all at the same time if you need to. Okay, where you're rooted in love, and there's a natural kind of whatever way you need to be. You can be tough and strong, you can be tough and gentle at the same time, because you can actually anchor both frequencies. Omni Love is soft, tough, and enduring, honouring self, other, and the divine simultaneously, because you realise, well, they're all the divine anyway. So you honour the divine in everything. Christos Omni Love is the fulfilment of the Christos principle. Okay? And again, that code is there because if we connect with our own Christos and begin to feel that as a living reality, then there will be the energy of Omni Love will become something we don't really have to think about. It will actually be a natural expression of who and what we are. Okay? Rightio. Now, is that much clear enough? I mean, hopefully we might have a bit of time at the end for discussion. There's a certain structure I want to go through, but it would be really nice to hear people's experiences or if things make sense to them. Now, where is the love? Okay, this is a question that sometimes people ask if they come, like you found this weekend, you come and there's a lot of technical information, a lot of new drawings and graphs and things like that. And sometimes people say, well, where is the love in these teachings? Because you come to something and you expect it to be like about spirituality and healing, and you get all this science. You say, well, where's the spiritual? Where's the love in these teachings? Okay, and there are a few different aspects to that. The answer, as we said earlier on, when you embody love, you will see it everywhere around you. So the love is actually within our own being. Now, in terms of this work, the answer to the question of where is the love is a sincere affirmation that I am the love. Because again, if you're saying, where is the love? You're looking for it from outside. And a firm commitment to embodying through action, thought, and creed. That should be deed, I think, should it? This eternal Christian ideal. When you choose at one-ment with the living God source within you, you will know the love. I am the love. All right? But we're just going to look at this question of where is the love, just a little bit more specifically in terms of the dimensional structure all right? Because, and also we're going to look at another very common expression that you might sometimes hear in terms of love and spirituality, you know, when you're told, people are told sometimes to open their heart. And it sounds lovely, open your heart. Okay, because we know instinctively that the heart in this area is to do with love. And as we see, it's actually more the azure, the energy. Okay, so we know that there's a memory in us that this is where love is in our being. Okay, but we just look at this chart in relation to those two subjects which are connected. Okay, now when we come to Kipara, we get a lot of technical information and we get a lot of new information about structure and whatever. And why we're getting that is that at the higher levels of our awareness, all right, with Christos or all these other levels, that part of our awareness knows all of this material. Okay, if you were a fully embodied avatar, you'd know all this stuff. You wouldn't have to go to a class. Okay, now here we are down here at this moment. We're in a harmonic universe which has got very contracted and quite isolated in some ways. And if we want to be able to communicate with the higher aspects of ourselves, it's very helpful to speak their language to some extent, to learn to speak the language and to bridge the gap and to sort of make some attempt from our mind here to understand how the rest of the universe works, because that allows for more communication. And if you think of the D12 energy as well, each of these dimensional levels, in terms of our own bodies and our own auric, you know, the concept of your aura, like your energy body, okay, and your chakras, is that, everybody's heard of those to some extent, okay. Now, each of those dimensional levels corresponds to what we call an auric level, and also to a Kipara center. It would have a connection with chakras, with all of the other things you may have heard about in other systems. Now, if we want all the energy, the light and the sound from the higher aspects of ourselves, if we want to anchor it here and now, where we are in our physical bodies and in our minds and hearts here, it has to come right through all the dimensions to meet us here. Okay? Now, when we look at the body, the first three dimensions, this one here, first dimension, connects with our atomic level. The second with more our molecular and also our emotional selves, our emotional bodies. The third has a strong connection with what we call our mental body, our mind. Now, if you're thinking of bringing in making the information and the vast stores of cognition that are available at these higher levels of your being, and if you want to be able to anchor that here, in yourself here, it must come through all of the levels, okay? Now, the rest of your levels know this, but it must come through the mental body, must get some grasp of how the whole thing works. And for many of us, our mental bodies have actually been our friend because they've had a certain skepticism that have made us sort of step back a bit. Isn't that true? I'm sure many of you found that. You hear all sorts of stuff, and part of you is saying, that doesn't feel right, okay? Or it doesn't make sense, or there's something that isn't quite, it doesn't satisfy my mind in some way, okay? So the mind, it's very important to integrate the mental body. There are two reasons for that. One of them is, and it's in Voyagers, there's a very good description of this in Voyagers too, that one of the distortions that has been done to our DNA template, and when I say has been done, in some ways we've allowed it, so we're not victims, but our DNA template has had a major distortion in the third DNA strand, where there was like a separation. If you think of each of the DNA strands as having 12 little sections, like it's like one string of light bulbs and 12 little bulbs, okay? Now, at the center, between the sixth and seventh, around the center of the third dimensional aspect of our being, there was like a split made, like a division. And the lower part of dimension 3 is like the ego, what we call the ego here, okay? And then the higher aspect is what's called the higher mind or the higher self. And because of that distortion, there's been like a sort of a chasm, you could say, an abyss between what we call the ego, the individuated self, and the higher aspects, even of the third dimensional self, of the mental body. And when we bring this information in, it's actually allowing us to start to heal that gap. Why people get frightened and why the ego, especially if people really feel separated, that's when they really get into ego stuff and they have to be important and they have to have the big car and show how important they are, because they have such a sense of separation from the rest of themselves, and they're actually quite frightened of not being important or good enough, so they have to overcompensate. Now, when we start to bring in and integrate the mental body, it starts to heal that rift. And the higher mind, the higher self, can actually begin then to communicate with the ego. And the ego realizes, okay, it's okay to have ego. We all have an ego. The ego is the individuated self, right? It's the part of us that is looking out through our eyes and enjoying the world around us. So having an ego isn't a problem. It's when it becomes frightened and separated and becomes what's called a negative ego. But when we integrate, when the mind begins to integrate and heal itself, and that rift in the center of the mind begins to heal, then it allows all of the information that we have on all the other levels to also become accessible to us. And quite often that information is accessible by what we call direct cognition. So that, for example, if your Christos self was communicating with you, it may not write to you in English or German or whatever, but you might just know, you have a knowingness, right? You have this cognition that if you had to put it in words, you could, but the essence of it is beyond words. But by learning the language and the structure, we're allowing that higher part of self to communicate with us, because we're beginning to know what it's talking about, even if it doesn't use language. We know, okay, how this works, we know how the energy works, we know how language works, so that we're actually much more empowered to bring the rest of us in here. The rest of us is around us. It's not that it's gone away, but it's like there's this gap that we can't, it's like a door that's become very, very closed, and instead of the two-way swinging door that we talked about earlier. Another aspect of integrating the mind, which I found very interesting, was that if you think of each of these levels, remember I was saying, I think it was when we were doing the sound module, that if you think of each of these levels, to have a three-dimensional universe, we obviously have three dimensions. And that brings us back again to the Manu, the Iri, and the Mani. Now, with each of these, think of a set of three here, the level 3 is connected with the Manu energy, which is the wholeness. Level 2 is more connected with the Mane energy, and level 1 is more connected with the Iri energy. And if you remember, we were saying at the beginning even of this session that the energy, the flame of Amareya holds the energy of the Manu energy. It is a way of the Manu energy, the wholeness of Source. The divine love of Source expresses itself in the Manu, more in the Manu. The Manu holds the feeling of oneness and the ability to go out in polarity, but within the context of the oneness. So contrary to maybe the way we have been maybe encouraged to think in our society, where we're encouraged to think that if you use your head too much, that you're not loving. Now, people can get too logical as well. That can be an extreme. But the mental body, the D3 mind, is actually of us, if we think of ourselves in our 3D world here, it is actually the part of ourselves that can most hold the love energy. Which is interesting, because we've been encouraged to think that love is feeling and love is emotion. Usually when we say, I love you, it means, oh, I feel so much. All right, or else the root chakra is working, okay, whatever. Okay, but the real love is actually this sense of the Manu energy, the still point, and the knowing that I am God, you are God. We can play, we can be together, but within the context of the unity. And it is the mind that holds that. Interestingly enough, isn't the feeling. The feeling, isn't the feeling. The feeling is also included in that. Okay, we've been encouraged to think, and there are some traditions, particularly at the present time, where people are encouraged to open their hearts and to not be in the head. That's a big expression that I've heard certainly in certain circles. Don't be in the head, be in the heart. Okay, and if you open your heart, again, if we think of the different levels of creation. Now, for the new people, just to remind you that we said that the D3 is the mental body. D4 would correspond to what we call the astral body. D5 with the archetypal, D6 with the angelic mind, which is why we're saying that we all are angels. We all have an angelic self. Okay, it's the D6 self. But all of these dimensions also relate to chakras. Has everybody heard of chakras? Is there anybody who doesn't know what a chakra is? Now, if you think of chakras, the basic ones that we've all heard about, the first 7, the 4th chakra is at the heart. Now, the 4th chakra is connected to the 4th dimension. And if you open your heart, what you're doing is you're opening up your whole astral body. And if you haven't done something like the Mahara seal, which creates a pillar of protection, it means that you're like an open house on the astral level for anything that wants to mess with you, or control you, or manipulate you. So if you open your heart indiscriminately, you actually make yourself quite vulnerable energetically. It's like somebody who's, like, you can see this with people, maybe teenagers or young people, before they really learn how to handle their energy, and they're almost too open. And then they can get taken advantage of, even on a 3D level. Mm-hmm. Now, on a spiritual level, if we are so open that we're open to everything, we actually make ourselves very vulnerable energetically. And we're not actually taking responsibility for our fields. We can open our heart. Ash said in the Hawaii workshops, of course you can trust your heart, but after you've strengthened your field. When you're in your strength, then you can trust your heart, because your heart does know, and you do feel things. But if you haven't sealed yourself and made your own connection to source, you are very open and can be very vulnerable. And it's a play on words that sounds lovely to say to somebody, open your heart. But if you're doing it without protection, and protection doesn't mean that we're trying to defend ourselves. It just means being strong in your own pillar, and then you can trust your feeling self. All right? But if you don't strengthen your own pillar, opening your heart can make you, there's actually a really nice expression in one of the Shakespeare's plays, I think it's The Winter's Tale, where Leontes, don't even know that play, Leontes says at one point, I am a feather for each wind that blows. Right? Every wind that blows can blow me around, okay? And in a sense, if we open our heart, we can, and not be in our own power, we can be pushed around an awful lot. And there are lots of things happening in the astral level. It's the level, for example, if you have, and particularly if you're somebody who, when you sleep and you have very bad dreams or nightmares, really good to do your Mahara seal and things before you go to bed, because that's like when we're sleeping, we often go into these levels of our being more consciously, okay? So does that make sense to you about the opening of your heart? Mm-hmm. It's not that we're against, this work isn't all in the mind either, but in order for us to even stay safe energetically, our minds needed to cop on to what was going on. And then when the mind knows what's going on and we have a certain stability in our fields, then we can be extremely loving, and even more loving than we're going around, I'm open up to everything, but you're, as Ash, what did she say, once you're like a space case, right? Where you're so open that you really, anybody could just blow you around. And that is, in terms of our understanding of responsibility, it's not really taking full responsibility for our energy. So it is an important thing, because it's something that comes up often with the work. Oh yeah, I'm glad I forgot I had this one here. This shows the auric levels, just to make that clear for people who are very new, that when we're talking about chakras and dimensions, they're within ourselves, but they're also within our energy body as well. And if we're talking about, here we're talking about the Maharic seal in the 14th, 15th dimensions. The sound fields would be kind of outside here, the light fields. This is our more immediate self from the D12 level on. And here we have, if you can imagine if we do our Maharic seal and we build a really strong seal around us, that our Maharic level is quite strong. Then when we open our heart, it's within a very safe environment. But if that's not strong there, and the heart is here, then it means that we're very vulnerable to anything that might want to play around and mess with us. And we do have a responsibility not to be naive. And it's actually part of, again, holding the love vibration. To be streetwise. Do you have that expression here, streetwise? Or Americans say street smart. But you do need to be. We do need to be strong. To be able to love, we need to be strong as well. Now we just come to the steps towards joy. And as I said at the beginning, in this work, I really noticed in the articles that whenever the word love was used, quite often the word joy was used. And the words power, personal power, divine right order. We've covered a fair bit of that, because if you understand how to use your power, then you can express love in its truest form. And it is also the path of joy. This adventure of creation was actually meant to be fun. We were meant to play at creation, not work at it. Okay? So there was the intention for it to be joyful. There is a perpetual joy. But again, like we were saying earlier, because we have experienced maybe at times the lack of love, we felt the separation, the loneliness, the grief, the loss. When we begin to re-embody the love consciously, it's all the more precious. And the same applies to joy. When we have felt the lack of it, and we begin to really feel it stirring within us, it is all the more precious. It's like the pearl of great price that you felt you'd lost, and then you begin to discover it again. So when we are strengthening our fields and becoming strong in ourselves, there is the potential to feel real joy, even in an environment which may not seem to justify us feeling joyful. People say, how can you be joyful when there's so much going on in the world? But by actually really anchoring the joy, you're actually helping a huge amount of people without even talking to them, because you carry that frequency of joy. To carry the frequency of joy means that you have anchored enough of your crystals not to be in fear, and to hold a strength that will actually be very, very helpful to other people, even if you never say a word to them. So these are outlined in the, there's a little book there, Angelic Realities, and at the back of that there's these steps towards joy and steps towards joy with other people as well. And particularly the one with other people, there's a very strong correlation between steps towards joy and the responsibilities of mastery. Very strong. So surrender to the moment, right? This is a line or two on each one of them. Just surrender to the moment. Most of us, or certainly a lot of people, live either in tomorrow or yesterday. Most people are either focused on they're not really where they are right now, okay, in their mind. So to be in the present moment is actually a step towards joy. Now we need to be aware of the future, we need to plan and things like that, but to actually have our main focus of energy in the present moment is very important. So what can I learn from this that will take me from higher levels of self-awareness? Because when we get to even get some taste of the eternal nature of our being, time has less of a grip on us, and we begin to realize that there is nothing but the present. There's nothing but the eternal now. And it's like we are time travelers going through time, but there's a part of me which is beyond time. And if you begin to get even a very slight taste of that, our relationship with time is different. Because remember, as Fraz was explaining to you about the time matrix, when we came into manifestation first, we were this enormous Christos being. And we kind of gradually moved ourselves down into many, many expressions of ourselves in the time matrix, with the intention that there was a part of us that would know that I am Christos, I am Source, and there are all of those expressions of me exploring creation, but I know myself as an eternal being at the same time. So it's like playing the game of time, but not getting caught up in it. What's happened at the moment for many of us, so we played the game and it's like the hologram with it. We made lots of different movies, and we suddenly became stuck in one movie, and we forgot that we were also the producer and that we were watching the movie. We kind of identified so much with one character that we kind of got stuck. And phase locked is the word that Ash uses. So we're beginning, now it doesn't mean right now we're going to remember all our lives and all who we are, because maybe we're just a bit much to handle right now, we have enough to do. But when we go to the still point, we will begin to have more access to the eternal nature of our being. And there will be a joy in that, because you realize then that there's really nothing to be afraid of. Now, so to be here now, am I right here, right now? So that's similar to the other one. Or is part of me kind of next Christmas and part of me back when I was 8 years old or whatever. We'll allow ourselves to feel, and again, as I said, with the protection of our shield. The feeling, when we talk about feeling, there's the emotional stuff, which quite often, especially if we're in a very strong emotional state, that's often when we're a bit out of balance. When we're feeling all angry or feeling upset. And that's something where we can nurture ourselves and come back into balance. But when we're in balance, our feeling is coming from a very high level. It's like a direct cognition. It's like energy sensing. And if you remember, those of you who've done Kathara 1, there's a description in Kathara 1 of the 12 senses. And most of the higher senses, one of them is being able to read out in energy signatures, and several of them are about being able to kind of sense and feel on a cognition level, rather than seeing or hearing on the obvious level. So when we get in a still point, the feeling sense and our direct cognition can be very accurate, and it can help us to understand and to let go of any fear and to feel the joy of the present moment as well. And the next one, choose your response. As it says in the notes, be an act rather than react. And we're programmed so much to react, to jump in and maybe get into the victimizer game with people. So sometimes if we can step back for a moment, if we feel a very strong emotion coming up, if we can just remove ourselves from the situation and sort of say, well, what's this reflecting to me? How much of this is my stuff? How much is it the other person? And actually choose how you're going to respond. That will save you an awful lot of, the blame game that goes on, either in relationships or in friendships or in families, where people are blaming each other for things or just getting angry. You made me angry. Oh, if you're a Christos being, can anybody really make you angry? Because they couldn't make you angry unless there was a little bit of that in you to get angry, right? So when we choose our response, it's become a little bit more, not detached, but like the non-engaged. What is it? Non-engaged detachment. Is that which way? Engaged non-detachment. Is it engaged non-detachment?
Engaged detachment.
Engaged detachment. Yeah, where you're fully involved, but you're not attached. Right? And that's quite an interesting situation where, when we're talking in Kathara about all these dimensions and ascension and all that kind of thing, it's not with the view to being removed from the world and I'm separate and I'm too lofty to be involved in my 3D life. It's about being fully engaged in your 3D life but not attached to it. Okay, and it's an interesting perspective, but it does give you more joy because you don't make things more important than they really are. Because you realize, okay, the really important thing is the expression of God within me, and the rest of the things are just expressions of that, rather than that the external hologram is the most important thing. The external hologram comes as a result of your own energy field. So if there's something in it you don't like, sometimes you have to deal with something in the outside as well, but you still need to come within again. So, and this one, experience stillness, no silence. There's a really nice way Ash expressed this in the Beyond the Veils workshop, where she was saying that a lot of us, we get so busy and we don't always make time for ourselves, and I can certainly claim that for myself as well. Very common with mothers, I think, particularly. And you can sort of make time for everybody else, but you don't make time for yourself. And Ash said, think of it this way. If you had an appointment with anybody else and you broke the appointment, you'd feel, I mustn't break it. I've arranged to meet somebody, I've arranged to spend an hour with my child this evening, I arranged to meet my pal, or whatever it is. You'd make sure you showed up for that appointment. Now, if you make an arrangement to spend time with yourself, then that is equally an appointment with your own self. To allow, like if you say, well, I need to spend half an hour, or whatever it is with yourself, nurturing your spiritual growth, getting to know yourself a bit better, then that is actually as valid an appointment as anything with anybody else. And to allow yourself the quietness, just to be with yourself. Some of it, of course, is doing techniques and things, but sometimes just to be with yourself. How am I feeling? How things are? Because often in that quietness, you will get a lot of inspiration and a lot of understanding. I'm sure most of you have done that at times. Often it happens when you're just doing something like going for a walk, and the rest of you is busy, but you're able to be quiet and be in touch more with yourself. And this is the honor your whole being. What do I really need right now? Am I giving freely in joy, or am I giving to receive? How can I fulfill my own needs? Again, it's really about self-love. Because am I giving to somebody so that they'll give me something back? Or am I giving with no attachment at all to whether they even like it? Can I just give freely for the sheer joy of giving, and not worry about whether they appreciate it or not? Just give for the sake of giving. So how can I fulfill my own needs? And what's really nice is actually they have, with this symbol that's been used with a lot of these for personal joy, it's the Manu code, interestingly enough. So it's about, again, coming from that point of stillness. Now, joy with others, because we all want good relationships and friendships. And these are remarkably close to the attitudes and responsibilities of mastery. Because again, if we want fulfilling relationships with other people, the more we embody our own power and the more we fulfill our own needs, the more joyful our relationships will be. And again, these are in the end of the Angelic Realities book in detail. Now, own your stuff. This is a big lesson for all of us. It's so easy to blame other people if we're unhappy. or if we're depressed or whatever, that you did this or you upset me or whatever, you're supposed to make me happy, all of those things. So if we want to have a joyful relationship with other people, we really need to know ourselves well as well, okay? Because otherwise we will project onto other people what we have not fulfilled in ourselves. We are all projectors, we're all like movie producers, and we're producing, each one of us is producing our own film, our own movie. And if we don't know ourselves well, we will constantly project onto other people what's on our own shield. You know that like we all have patterns in our lives, and you see, for example, say, people who constantly draw themselves the same type of relationship to themselves, like somebody who maybe is in a particular type of relationship, that relationship ends, and they're looking for a new relationship. It's actually the same relationship they get, but just a different person. It's a different actor playing the same part. And if that keeps happening, at some point, maybe they'll realize, maybe something in me that's actually making that happen. Okay, why do I attract the same? Some women say, well, I always attract that type of man, or men might say, I always get that kind of girl, or whatever, okay? And it's because there's something in our own pattern that draws that type of dynamic to us until we cop on and realize, okay, that maybe they are showing me something. So owning our own stuff. Am I dumping my stuff on others right now, or am I allowing others to drain me by dumping their stuff on me? That's a big one in relationships, especially like intimate relationships, because we have been very much programmed in our society to expect our romantic partner to fulfill all our needs. If you listen to half the songs or whatever, that somehow that person's going to fill us up and we'll always be happy and we'll never be unhappy again. And often, particularly if it's your twin, and the higher the level of the twin, you actually mirror much more to each other, and it actually can be more challenging than not being with your twin. So what we need to do is to realize, okay, am I just ventilating on somebody, is a word some people use, just letting it all out on somebody, or am I genuinely communicating with them? Okay, so what's my motive? We have the right to, if we're feeling a bit sad or depressed or something going on in us, we have the right to respectfully ask somebody, could I talk to you about this? Because I just need to talk it through. I need, it would help to have somebody else even to listen and to give me feedback. And that's respecting the person, so the person can say, well, how about later? Or they can respect their space and situation. But if we just assume the person is there to be the recipient of whatever's going on in us, then we're dumping. And people can do it to us as well. And it's to respect our own self. If people do it to us, then we must realize somehow we're allowing it, for one thing. We're allowing them to do that. And to respect ourselves and respect them and say to them, well, I don't particularly, this isn't the right time, or whatever. But we still need to respect ourselves to have a joyful relationship with other people. Respect boundaries. Now, we are all one, but we're all one at the level of source. It doesn't mean that we have to live in each other's pockets when we come into manifestation. So we do respect boundaries, respect other people's personal space. Am I genuinely respecting the boundaries of others? Am I allowing my boundaries to be violated? What actions can I take to change this? Things like, I think it's in the responsibilities, Hilary, if I'm right. Things like, for example, giving people unsolicited advice. You know what you should do, all right? Or allowing, if we give unsolicited advice, if we gossip about people, if we impose our views on other people, that is not respecting their boundaries and their own connection to their source. And we're somehow pushing our view of things on them. And am I allowing and we also have the right to respect our own boundaries. To say, well, listen, this isn't just right now, it's not the best time. Or we have the right to say, well, I had to learn this myself recently, to say to people, listen, please, respect my boundaries in terms of when the office is open and when it isn't open for phone calls. And we have the right that people, contact us at certain times and not others. And it's respecting your boundary that you can actually say, well, this is how much I need to nurture myself and respect myself as well. So we all have the right to do this. And again, it depends on your upbringing, but some people have difficulty with that, of actually respecting themselves. Mutuality, this is the classic win-win. Is there some way we can both win out of this and gain from this, that we both feel better out of the situation? And it's obviously a positive way to interact. When we both get our needs met and Sometimes we have the right to disengage with relationships that are not fulfilling for us. We are not obliged to meet somebody else's agenda, right? So we do have the right, if something is not mutually nurturing and satisfying, then we do have the right to disengage, not reject them in a heavy kind of way or be unkind, but we can just honor our own space, is really what it is. Be effective. Ask yourself, am I trying to make someone else wrong? Is someone trying to make me wrong? We had great fun at the last workshop as Shiana was going through some of the stages of what you call the victim-victimizer blame game, which is really very, very interesting. And she was saying, we will see this playing out. We are seeing it playing out in the world stage as well. Mm-hmm. And one aspect of the victim-victimizer game is you make somebody else wrong to make yourself look good. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure we've all done it. You feel bad about yourself, but so-and-so did much worse, or look at what she's doing or what he's doing. And they're doing this in the world stage right now. So there's always a bad guy. And the bad guy makes you feel good because, he's so much worse than you are. Okay? So am I trying to make someone wrong in this situation just to cover up something in myself? Is someone trying to make me wrong? Sometimes people will do this as well. They're blaming you for what's going on in their lives. Are we respecting each other's boundaries and right to be? So it all comes back to respecting each one of us as an individuated face of Source that has a right to explore creation in its own way, basically. Another response is to take responsibility for your own actions and your own feelings. So if you're having a bad day, you take responsibility for that. You don't blame your partner or your friend. You can say to them, listen, I'm not feeling well. Do you mind helping me? But you don't expect them to, you don't blame them for your feelings. Okay, so it's and then you can have a joyful relationship because there isn't this kind of unwritten type of thing, not unwritten, but unspoken expectations and underlying agendas, and we've all seen those underplay when people aren't really saying what they mean, and there's all this kind of stuff that you don't know what's going on, but you can feel it. You don't feel comfortable. Humility. Do I act with humility? And again, as we said earlier, humility is not thinking that you're nothing. Humility is knowing that you're God, but so is whoever you're with. And it's like a being anchored fully in the love of Source is really what humility is. So there are ways of valuing ourselves and valuing other people and beginning to have a truly joyful relationship. And of course, the way the paradox works is the less you look for it from outside, the more it seems to come to you, which is really interesting, right? The less you look for love outside, the more it seems to come to you from other people because you're embodying it yourself. So we just finish with these affirmations. They come from one of the more recent sets of techniques, but we can just use them as an affirmation. And maybe we'll all say them together. And there's this one and there's the next one. And again, it's affirming ourselves as who we are, and that we're going back to knowing ourselves truly as Source. So we just read them together. I return now to innocence, purity, and eternal perfection of the whole self that I am. I return now in innocent longing to the one core point of eternal love. I release now all worries or fears of the outer worlds. I release now all contemplations, angers, pain, or sadness, and I return now through the window of an innocent longing to embrace the truth of my eternal perfection in me, as it is always within the heart song of God's Source. And my relationship with Source comes first, and then just produces this one. Crystallate command. Be still. Right? Be still. Be still now as one with God. Be joy. Be now as one with God. Be love. Be now as one with God. Be peace. Be now as one with God. Be whole. Be now as one with God. Be free. Be now as one with God. I am this now. I am. And then this is just reminding us about being in gratitude. It's a great cure for when you're having a bad day or you're depressed. Is say to yourself, even at the end of the day, can I even think of 5 things I could be grateful for today? And it's amazing how it changes Can I think of anything that was good about today? And even if you can't, as Ash says, even if everything seems to be in chaos, you still, when you turned on your tap, did water come out? All right, your table is full of bills, you have all the bills on the table, but you have a table. So to look at the way that that again, in the Dance for Life, she talks about that one, is can we think of anything in our environment that we can be grateful for? Because that actually is a creative energy. By the flow of gratitude goes out and it comes back to source, and it brings more to you. As I say, just like somebody says thank you to you, you actually want to give them more. If it's a genuine appreciation, isn't that true? Somebody says thank you, or you really appreciate without any agenda, and you just want to open out more love to them and more joy to them. So that's just some things we can think of as being grateful for. And this, again, these codes, so many of these codes, this particular is a really beautiful journey that's in Kithara 4, where you go really through various levels of yourself back to the core self that you are. And these codes represent ourselves at different levels of creation. So these codes are not something outside of yourself. There's a part of you that looks like each of these or expresses as this. And when you begin to get in touch with that, it does help to build that understanding, and not just an understanding, but a cognition of yourself as source. So this just tells her, and yeah, so we just finished with the vow to the I am. I think we'll read it because not everybody knows the melody. And this is just really acknowledging yourself as God. Okay, so we'll read it. I am a child of the original one. I am a ray of the original sun. I am wholeness. I am love. I am the truth that spans the sands of time. I am the rainbow of her very first shine. I am music. I am light. Let the light descend upon me. Guide the way with golden light. No other God will stand before me, as I embrace the one true life I was born to live, by the will of the original one. I am the face of the original God. I am the voice of the original sound. I am a wave on the ocean of eternal light. I reach my arms up to the heavens and say, I am this I am. The presence of the ancient one springs forth at my command. I am one with God. I am this I am. And as I decree it, so it is. So, namaste. Namaste. Thank you. Hi, God.
Well, Rosalie has finished on time to the second.
Yeah, so clear. Time matrix,
Yes.
managing time.
So, considering how we've varied over the 2 days, that's brilliant. I'd just like, on behalf of everybody, to thank all 4 of the people who presented.
Omni Love, fully engaging the love vibration. The greatest love that can be embodied in human form is Omni Love. Omni Love is a pure state of vibrational frequency co-resonance between the human identity and the 12 dimensions of reality within which the human anatomy is couched. Omni Love is expressed in human form as Christed love, or Christos consciousness, the 12th dimensional love of the Maharic level of identity. Christos love is a state of full frequency co-resonance with everything existing in the many universes contained within 12 dimensions of the 15-dimensional system. It is a transcendent love that is attached to no thing, but is at one with all things, in a state of perpetual engaged detachment. Through Christos Omni Love, the Self is known as an extension of God, or the Divine Source, a temporary mask of form worn by the one consciousness of the cosmos. all things and beings are known as simultaneous expressions of the one self that is God's source. From this state of transcendence in love, all activity is understood to exist within the reality of love, and all conflict and strife are viewed as the one self progressively expanding the ability of its expressions to carry the frequencies of energy that constitute one love. A state of total vibrational frequency co-resonance with the cosmos. Activation of the full 12-strand silicate matrix DNA template and full integration of the Mahara Huva Body avatar identity allows for the experiential embodiment and transmission of Christos Omni Love. Embodiment of Omni Love is the goal toward which human evolution moves forth. Omni Love is soft, tough, and enduring, honoring self, other, and the divine simultaneously. It is the strongest healing force of frequency in the four harmonics of matter density. Christos Omni Love is the fulfillment of the Christos principle. Strive to bring Omni Love into your life, and personal and client healing facilitation, and you will assist your higher identity levels to create transformation. Omni Love is the natural structure of reality. Awareness of Omni Love is cultivated through intention, and appropriate use of personal free will choice in congruence with the natural laws of the unified field physics of consciousness and creation. Through living in Omni Love, all moments are known as sacred. All beings are known as blessed, and life becomes an ecstatic study in reverence for existence. Omni Love exercise to amplify healing facilitation. Kathara Level 1 Manual, page 198. Successful practice of this exercise requires familiarity with and practice of the Maharic Seal technique and also the Doradic Phase 1 current, both of which are presented in the Kathara Level 1 course. Omni Love exercise to amplify healing facilitation. The Mahara space, comfort touch. Exhale the Hierophant symbol from behind the forehead, down the central body current, into Earth's core, chakra 13. Then inhale the Hierophant back up to your Maharic shield, 12 inches below the feet. Spin the Hierophant to activate the Maharic shield and Maharic seal pillar. Inhale energy up from your Maharic shield into your Doradic sphere at chakra 4. Breathe slowly and deeply while visualizing a small, faceted crystal sphere in the center of your Doradic sphere at chakra 4. This is the holographic crystal sphere. It represents the station of your inner avatar identity. This is the Mahara space. Focus your consciousness within the holographic sphere and feel its reality around you, as if your body is encased within the holographic sphere. Observe the interior of the sphere as a pale silver-white mist. Within the mist, now envision a golden treasure chest, a treasure you had left for yourself long ago to one day reclaim. This represents your inner Ark of the Covenant, a doorway to reclaiming your ancient immortal heritage. Mentally command the lid of your inner Ark of the Covenant to lift. As the lid rises, pale rainbow-colored light fills the interior of your holographic sphere. Notice now that within the golden box there is a gleaming silver sword. The silver rod of power that will enable you to more quickly evolve to your eternal state of being. Mentally make the silver sword rise from the golden box, floating above the box in a vertical position. Now call to mind the image of your body as it sits within the physical room. Imagine the silver sword positioned above the body's head, directly over chakra 7. Exhale and steadily lower the silver sword through the 7th chakra and down the central body current, through the Maharic shield and down into Earth's core. Observe the silver sword turn into a pillar of pale silver light with pale rainbow colors flashing through it. The rainbow pillar now surrounds and runs through your body, raising its frequency while lowering its vibration, lifting your body cells into a less dense state of matter. Feel your body growing lighter and lighter as the rainbow pillar slows the spin rate of your matter particles, making you more and more electric, more light. As you feel the sensations of your density lessening, imagine that your body is beginning to glow with pale silver light. The pre-matter liquid light of dimensions 10, 11 and 12. Feel the features of your face and the contours of your body begin to melt into a silver, two-dimensional, fluid body form. The form of the body still remains, but it has been returned to its first density state. The silver liquid light holographic form of the avatar identity. Know yourself now as this avatar identity. And feel the essence of pure love and eternity flow through you. Know yourself as this essence of divine love and eternal light. Now inhale and draw the rainbow pillar into the holographic sphere at chakra 4. Visualize the base pulling up from Earth's core and the portion above your head simultaneously contracting into the holographic sphere. Exhale the energy of the rainbow pillar fully into the holographic sphere and observe the holographic sphere become a radiant silver ball of liquid light stationed with your Doradic sphere in the heart chakra. You may now transmit the frequencies of the fourth harmonic, dimensions 10, 11, and 12, to serve as a healing force for others. You may transmit this energy into your environment directly through the fourth heart chakra, where it will enter the unified field at the fourth dimensional astral plane. You may use the breath to move the holographic sphere down into the third chakra for third dimensional transmission into the Earth's atmosphere and the mental body levels of people's bioenergetic field. You may transmit through chakra 2 into the telluric or elemental kingdom of the planet and into people's second dimensional emotional bodies. Or you may transmit the frequencies of the silver sword through the first base chakra for sacred bonding and intimate relationship, or to raise the frequency and lower the vibration of the molecular and subatomic fields around you. To transmit the frequencies of the silver sword through the chakras, simply use the exhale breath to move the silver light-charged holographic sphere down to lower chakras. Inhale and use the next exhale to push the frequency outward from the selected chakra into the environment. Use the inhale breath to move the holographic sphere up through the chakra system. Always move the holographic sphere up or down along the central body current, to which the core of each chakra is attached. You may also transmit the frequencies of the silver sword through applied touch, the comfort touch, to amplify specific healing facilitation functions and to establish a more harmonious rapport with other people and the nature kingdoms. Simply visualize the silver liquid light-charged holographic sphere at the center of your Doradic sphere in the fourth chakra. Activate your Doradic 1 current via the Maharic shield and seal. Then visualize the silver liquid light from the holographic sphere combining with the green-violet-silver Doradic 1 current. As you exhale the current into the Doradic cords in the arms and into the Doradic balls in the palms. This application is especially useful to help clients relax during sessions, or to comfort others when they are in a state of stress, unbalance, or illness. Once your current is moving into the Doradic balls, exhale the current through the right palm. Place the right palm gently and briefly over the client's rear chakra 2, or touch them gently on the left shoulder. The amplified Doradic 1 current will move into the fourth dimensional astral body field and move its way into the mental, emotional, and physical bodies from there. The comfort touch of the Mahara space can be applied to infants, children, older persons, animals and plants to comfort them and support their general well-being.